webinar. Today we're going to talk about fleet priorities, or how to manage your priorities, or how to stick to your priorities. I think many of you will recognize that you set priorities, objectives, this is what you want to reach, and in the end you did not, or you did not completely, and you're realizing, I should have focused more, I should have prioritized it more, I should have done things differently. A very frustrating feeling. At least that's what I recognize myself. And today we're going to talk about that and to see, well, what can you do about it? How can you stick to your priorities? How can you make your priorities that important that you really realize your objectives and be successful? Let's say, will provide inputs to you, and I will definitely ask you to provide input back to me as well, so we make it an interactive session. And to start with, that would be great if you can all type your name in the chat, from what organization you're from what country you're from, that we have a bit of an idea who we have here in the webinar today. Yeah, so just type it in the chat, and you will see who we are. During the webinar, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat box as well, but please do use the question mark in the bottom of the screen, just below the chat box. There's a question mark. If you click on the question mark and then type it in, then it will be easier in the end to sort of publish your question on the screen, and we can deal with that. Great. I see people from different parts of the world: Europe, Africa, Middle East, Asia. So great, very, very happy to see. And if you've not typed your name or just came in the webinar, then please, in the chat box, tell us who you are, where you're from, for what organization you work, and where you continue. So prioritizing is deciding what you do and what you don't do. And Publius Cyrus, who was originally from Syria, and had a sort of a Roman education. He was a writer, a theater player, and he had one of his famous remarks was, to do two things at once is to do neither. And there is some reality in that, and we will come to that during this webinar. So we all recognize typical examples of objectives like that: reducing the number of crashes by 50%, reducing carbon emissions, reducing the TCO, total cost of ownership of my fleet, reducing fuel consumption. There's many, many more. And many of you have participated in one of our fleet excellence trainings, or the fleet fundamentals trainings, where you, let's say, sort of set your own SMART objectives in your action plan. And of course, yeah, you all recognize that the objectives here are not SMART. SMART is reducing carbon emissions of my fleet by 25% by November 2026, for example. And then it makes it more SMART than this is. But we do understand, we have good intentions. We want to realize things, but we would not always succeed. So let me know in the chat. Think about take one initiative or one goal or one objective that you wanted to implement in the last 12 months. And just, again, type it in the chat. You say, okay, this is what I wanted to realize. A year ago, I really promised myself, this is what I'm going to do. So type it in the chat. You say, okay, this is what I wanted to realize. This was an objective. This was an initiative, to just give us a bit of an idea of what you have been working on in the last 12 months. So anyone here? I see people, yeah, fuel efficiency for cars, trucks, and generators. Very good. For all the types of vehicles that need fuel, reduce number of avoidable crashes, excellence, fleet KPIs monitoring. Yeah, so I see you did work on specific initiatives that you want to realize. Reduce fuel theft and road traffic accidents, increase capacity of carpooling. Very good. So there's a number of issues related to cost, related to emissions, related to road safety, sustainable fleet management, reduce my operating costs. There's many ideas here. So I see, because the list continues to grow, disposing of vehicles, that you all work on specific initiatives. Optimizing fuel consumption by 10%, reducing road crashes by 30%. Very good. So if you think about the initiatives that you just put in the chat, but you wanted to do in the last 12 months, how successful were you in realizing that? And do it on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1, actually, to be honest, I was not successful at all. 5 is I definitely realized my objective, maybe even better. And 3 is, well, to be honest, not really like I intended to. So how successful were you in achieving your objective? See, Samuel, 2, just type in the number between 1 and 5. 1, I actually know I didn't succeed. And 5 is I was extremely successful. Just get an idea of you. What is it? How, if you look at yourself, you assess the success of your own objective, of your own initiative. How successful were you? I see a 3 already, I see a 2. Maybe there are some more, another 2. Okay, that's interesting. So a 3. So I see it is not easy. Yeah, you will recognize that it's not easy to realize your objective. And there's a lot of distractions always. There's a lot of reasons why you could not realize your objective. A 1. So I see many of you are at the lower side, not successful at all, or a bit successful, medium successful. So think about the reasons. I see because of 4, very good. The reasons why you were not able to realize your objective. So what were the barriers or that made you not realize your objectives? Again, just type it in. What prevented you from realizing these objectives? Any idea? Whatever it is, in yourself, outside of yourself, other reasons. What were reasons? What were barriers? Why you only scored a 1 or 2 or 3 and not a 5, for example. So any ideas that you can come up with, you say, actually, if I look back, I wanted to reduce my fuel consumption, but actually I only partially realized it because technical issues I see here, and there might be others. Let's see if there are people having other type of barriers why they didn't realize their objectives. Overall priorities of the organization are different than fleet management. Yeah, that's Carlos. That's a very known one, and it doesn't make it easy. So hopefully we can get into some tips how that makes it, but you can still, let's say, realize your own objective despite the fact that it's not the priority of the overall organization. So I still see some people typing, organization procedures, people's ego. Yes, Joseph, that's definitely also an issue. And just keep on typing. It's interesting to see, and let's see if we can get into some of them. Balance of competing priorities. That's always a very difficult thing. And I see, Timothy, you cannot hear me. The only thing I can then recommend is to get out of the webinar and get back into the webinar as well. Again, that might be the solution. Staff behaviors and routine. So there's many reasons why you cannot realize your objectives. Let's see how we can realize a breakthrough. I have 7 tips, 7 simple, basic tips that might be of any help for you to say, okay, that might help me to stay focused on what I want to do. Do a health check. That's the first tip that I can give you. So if you have an objective, you set an objective for yourself, do the check, or is this really important? Is this the most important topic that I want to focus on at this moment? Or is maybe just an urgent topic that pops up, but maybe not important? Or is it just something that I really want to do? But or look at, is it important for the organization? Do you have a team that is ready for it? So do the health check on, is this the most important topic or in the top 3 most important topics that I should focus on? The second health check that you can do is, if I do this, what do I stop doing? Because, okay, so reduction of fuel consumption by 20% was one of your objectives. So if you really focus on that, that might mean that you cannot focus on other topics. That's probably one of your focus areas. You might have 1 or 2 others, but that is where you really focus on. So if you do that, what do you stop doing? And what is the impact of that to stop doing that? And thirdly, if I don't do it, so you said reduction of fuel consumption, you did the health check on, is it important? Yes, it's important because the organization want to reduce costs, the organization want to reduce emissions. So this really fits, it's really important. I focused on this, on reduction of fuel consumption. So if I would not do that, if I would not focus on it, if I would not realize that objective, that means that I do not contribute to the reduction emissions of my organization, to the reduction of cost of my organization. So there is an important impact of not doing it now, not focusing on this topic now. That is tip number 1. And this way, this is for yourself. This is the health check that you do for yourself. So own your priority. Like we said in the health check already, do you really focus on the check whether it's important for the organization as well? So we had the example of reduction of fuel consumption, but you can also say, okay, we have tight budgets, so we really need to focus on cost reduction for the organization. You take part of that, you contribute to that, even if you say, but it's very hard to reduce cost because of many reasons. Still, at this moment, it is the priority for the organization. So you start owning that topic. I own the topic of reduction of cost by reduction of fuel consumption, by looking at how do I use my vehicles, what's the vehicle utilization, many things that you can do to reduce your cost. And start communicating with everyone that you can imagine, with your manager, with your team, with colleagues, with people from programs, with HR, with finance, everyone. So communicate that this is your priority. This is what you're going to focus on. Because that means that all of a sudden you engage all kinds of other people in your priority. That means that everyone understands, okay, she or he is working on this topic, on reduction of costs. So it makes it easier for other people to contribute to it as well. It makes it easier for other people to understand why you have stopped doing other things, because this is your priority. It makes it easier for people to understand why you take specific decisions, because they realize you contribute to the success of the organization. In this case, you contribute to the cost reduction of the organization. So it's fair. It makes it easier for people to understand. People will help you to realize it. So own your priority and spread it as much as you can to everyone, so people will start working with you. Also with your manager. If it's very clear for your manager as well, and you agreed with your manager that this is the priority, it makes it harder for your manager to say, oh, no, this is important, or this is important. Balancing of priorities, like someone said, or a shift of the organization. It makes it easier if you have a very clear agreement with your manager upfront to say, this is the priority for me for the next half year, for the next 2 years, for the next 1 year, whatever it is, but agreed with your manager. Still, of course, things can happen, but if it's very clear and agreed by your manager that this is your priority, then your manager will not so easily put other topics on your plate or say, no, this is important, because you agreed and you had a good argument why this is important. So you did the health check, you own your priority, you communicate it to everyone, and then you start working on it, and you need to know where you are at this moment. So what is your status at the moment? So execute a baseline. Collect data, at least 5 months, probably even better, a year. So if you say, I want to reduce crashes by an X%, etc., then you really need to know, how did I do over the last 5 months, or maybe even a year or 2 years? Understand how many crashes, what the impact of the crashes, what were the causes of the crashes. You need to set a baseline to understand where you are before you know what you need to do to improve. So collect a baseline on crashes, or collect a baseline on, if you want to reduce emissions by reducing fuel consumption, you need to have a very clear insight in what is your average fuel consumption now over the last 5 months, preferably a year. Do I see a difference in types of vehicles? Do I see a difference in time of the year, let's say period of the year? Is it in the rainy season different than in the dry season? Whatever. So set a baseline, know where you are. And then you have your big dream. Think big, dream big, be extremely ambitious, because that means that you have to come up with new ideas. And not only you, because you have gathered, engaged all people around you, your team, your manager, your peers, your colleagues, everyone knows, and everyone will come up with ideas because they start talking to you. They start raising questions to you, and you can raise questions to other people because they know this is a topic that is your priority. And if you have an ambitious target, an ambitious objective, like the examples here, we will have 0 fatalities in 3 years from now. Or we will have, let's say, our fleet is 20% of our fleet is with low emission vehicles in 2 years from now. That's big, ambitious targets, which allows you, enables you, but also drives you to make serious changes and serious interventions to do it. But people like it as well. You know, people like it. It's okay. Whoa, this is where we're going. So it's clear what you want to achieve, and think big. And even if you say you have a big ambitious dream, if you only have a 4 on achieving it, then you already have a huge success, because it was a big ambitious target. And if you only have, let's say, almost to it, then you already realized a lot. Make your initiative known and body up. I expressed it already several times before. Make yourself accountable, but also spread the word. Spread the word to anyone around you, because people will, like said here, body up. People will start working with you. People like it to be engaged with someone with ambition. People like it in the end that they are part of a group of people who are successful, who realize objectives, because that's what people like. So communicate to everyone, make very clear on what you're going to achieve, what you want to achieve. Set up discussions with people around your topic. Bring up the topic every day again. Make every day a day that is about this topic and discuss it. Whoever you meet, just start talking about your priority, and people will come up with ideas, or they will understand what you do, or they will support you. Stay focused. Like I said, make every day a green, safe, cost-saving day, whatever it is. Stay focused. Work on it every day. Be clear that this is your priority. And don't get yourself distracted, which is so easily due to all kinds of urgent things that pop up now. And you might have the tendency to deal with some of the urgent things. Although, if you really are honest with yourself, you say, it's urgent, but is it that important for the future, that important for the organization? And if you are very clear, you have communicated to everyone, people will understand if you say, well, this is a topic that might look like urgent now, but it's already urgent for a long time. So we leave it like it is now. It's not the ideal situation, but for now, our focus, my focus, and therefore the focus of the organization is on this specific topics. And report on it on a very regular basis. You want to reduce your fuel consumption by 20% in 2 years from now. By, let's say, end of 2024, you want to have reduced your fuel consumption of your light fleet by 20%. That means report every month. Where are you? What was the baseline? How do you progress on it? And so you see where you are, and that makes it also easier to celebrate if you are successful. And try. Allow yourself to make mistakes. I know it's not easy. Organizations not always are very easy with that, but try new initiatives. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if it doesn't, you still learn from it. As long as you learn from it, it's great to fail. It's great to make mistakes because you are still progressing and learning. That's the way to stay focused. And the last one, use checkpoints. So break up your fuel consumption again, had the same topic, 20% in 2 years from now, and break it down, let's say, in several topics. So in June of 2023, I already want to see a reduction of 5%. And at the end, I want to have a reduction of 10% of the end of this year. So break it down into several steps where you see, okay, am I still on track? And celebrate. If you are successful, celebrate it with everyone, especially with your own team, of course, but make it known to people that you realized that stepstone, that milestone, that in between success towards your end goal. And be critical on your checkpoint, be on the stability. So if you reduce your fuel consumption by 5%, is that just lucky? Because for some reason, you had some new drivers who are more fuel efficient drivers, or is it really due to the fact that you intervened, that you put measures in place by which, let's say, your fuel consumption is reduced in a sustainable way? Good. 7 tips that are hopefully helpful to you in staying focused on what you do. It's some basic tips, some simple tips, but some of them might be helpful to you. And you might say, okay, that's helpful. And if it's not, let me know as well. Say, well, it doesn't make sense. I tried everything and it still doesn't work. So, questions. Are there any questions, comments, remarks to it? Let's see. I see some people typing already. So I'm curious to hear, if you say, well, okay, this is helpful for me, or these are tips already used, but still it doesn't work, then let me know as well. Or you have a specific question on how do I do that, or how do I do this? So let me know. And again, I see people typing, so I'm waiting for the question to appear. In the meantime, while waiting for it, I'll see you next week. There will be a webinar on help. I'm hired as the fleet manager. Some of you are new. So what do I do? So you start as a fleet manager in a new role. What does that mean from you? Okay. The first question, and let me go to the questions. Tilly, what is your advice to learn from mistakes? Often we try to forget about them quickly. Any suggestions? Yeah, that's a great question. And there's not a one size fits all question. Most important is if you evaluate let's say, your progress, and you see, well, we did this initiative and it didn't work at all, evaluate it thoroughly. Sit with your team, sit with the people who were involved, have discussions on, okay, what did we do? What was our intention? What went wrong? Why did it go wrong? Should we have done it differently? And what can we learn from it? And what does it mean for the future? So what does it mean for how do we implement new initiatives? Or what does it mean for who do we engage in new initiatives? So most important is that you look at why did it go wrong and engage people in that discussion and take the learnings out of that from how do you approach a new initiative? How do you plan a new initiative? Who do you engage in a new initiative? So, but document it, make a document with the discussion that you had and the conclusion of discussion, and use that. Put it on the wall somewhere, so you don't forget it. And if you have a new initiative, look back at your learnings and say, okay, what should we do differently now this time? That's right. We may have baselines for the 4 priority deemed to be the most effective. It is, I would say, for any of your priority, and 4, I would say, is already a lot. But if you really want to focus, then 4 is already a lot. But I would say for every priority that you have, you need to have a baseline. And if you say the 4 priorities are road safety, environmental impact, cost efficient, effectiveness, but I think that's very broad. You need to have very clear focus areas, priorities. Like I said, I think 4 is already pretty ambitious. But it could be, but 3 might even be better. But for every priority, you need to have a baseline. Yeah. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's what I would see. Let me see. We have another question here. Simon, I think the conversation with management is the hard part. By definition, if something is a priority, something else is not. But management might not be so happy to see what is not one. I fully agree with you. It's a tough discussion, and you need to be tough in that discussion. I worked for a long time in the corporate world, and you always had the budget discussions about money. And there was always one phrase that I had, let's say, on my wall: don't be a hero on budget day. And you might have the tendency to say, oh, I understand that there's so many important priorities for the organization, so I will take them all. But you need to have the discussion with your management that you say, I can't focus on all, because that's not focus anymore. I can have a limited number of focus areas of priorities, and that is. And if management decides that it's another area than you would decide, that's fine as well. But agree on the fact that you cannot have more than 3, or like that's maybe 4 priorities. And I think you need to convince them that if you have more, you will not succeed or realize any of them. So they can try to put 10 priorities on your plate, but they need to understand that that means that none of the 10 will be successful. So they have to choose out of the 10 what for them as well are the 3 most important ones. And of course, they don't like that some things are not being done, but it's better to say this year we realize 3, and next year we realize another 3, instead of not realizing 10 this year, not realizing 10 the next year. So I think that is the discussion that you can have. And still, I don't say it's easy. I know how these conversations are, and they want you to do everything, but still they need to realize if they want to be successful as an organization, then they should realize and allow you to have only 3 priorities. During baseline data collection, what's the best group of people we should collect data from? That really depends on what your priority is also. So if you say, again, fuel consumption, then you need to collect data, let's say, from all your vehicles, So all your drivers, all your vehicles over the last period, at least 5, preferably 12 with fuel consumption. That's where you take it from. If you say, so I assume that information of fuel consumption is in a system somewhere, whether you have a fleet management system or an Excel sheet or another system, but you should collect the data from any system that you have in which you capture data from fuel usage. If it is on crashes, then you look at probably security might have specific data. If you have an assurance department, they might have specific data. You might have the reports from your drivers. So it really depends on where you want to collect data from. Okay. I take one more, and then because we're already 1 minute over time, and there are some more questions. So it's good to see, how do I balance between 3 priorities? I would say, again, it depends. This is planning. I think you can manage 3 priorities, and you really have to be very clear on the initiatives and the activities that you want to do to realize these priorities. And you have to plan them throughout the period that you want to realize them. Half a year, 2 years. You really say, okay, this is what I'm going to do in this period of the year. That's what I'm going to do in that period of the year. And then you should see whether you can, all the initiatives or the activities related to your objective of the 3, if they fit in your time. And again, don't try to fit all your days full, because you have a daily management role as well. But really plan, describe all your activities that you need to do, plan them in time with the time needed for the activities, and then you can see, does that fit? And otherwise, you have to shift the activities to another period of time. That's the only way that you can balance the 3. Well, I see there's still some questions, but we are running out of time. Time is over, and we are very time strict. So if there's anything that you say, well, really want to have an answer to this, then please let me know. Send me an email, and we can always have an offline discussion on that. For now, thank you very much for your active contribution. I like it that we really can, bounce ideas on and off and get your input, and have a great rest of today. Bye-bye.